Okay, so we're in. Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to episode number 6. Hope you're doing well and staying safe. So today's episode is all going to be about the power of exercise on mental health, which one I think is very relevant at the moment due to the current situation that we're in. So today's episode is going to be about the power of exercise on mental health, and we're joined by a very special guest. It's my second guest on the podcast. We've got Jack Stafford, and he's going to share a bit of background and his story in his relation to mental health and how exercise has affected him in his life. And then we're going to go over a little bit about me, and then we're just going to go a bit of back and forth covering topics all related to mental health and exercise, which I think, like I said at the beginning, is very relevant due to the current situation that we're in. So welcome to the podcast, Jack. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you for having me, mate. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. So we'll start off, like I say, we'll just talk back and forwards. We'll try and just bounce off each other. I like to keep them quite fluid and just let them flow. If there's anything that you want to say or pop in, just jump in with it. But we'll just start off by, if you want to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself, sort of what you do, where you're from, and then we can dive into sort of the topic of the podcast and go into the mental health side of things in your story.
Yeah, sounds good. Hello, everyone. I hope, especially during the coronavirus, I think this is a really important topic to cover. I'm Jack Stafford. I've been a personal trainer for just over 2 months now. And I worked in Virgin Active 2.5 weeks before the gyms got shut down. And obviously, as fitness trainers, we are adapting more to the online kind of world now. So I think I reached out to Marcus because I listened to his podcast, and I think this is a really important topic to cover because I think mental health is going in the right direction where, that a lot more awareness is being spread. But I think there's a long way to go in kind of understanding the signs that people might be suffering, which I've been talking a lot about recently on my page, because going into the mindset of someone who has suffered from depression, I think it be a really good insight, into people out there who are struggling that you might not have thought about before.
Oh, good stuff. Like you say there, it's about getting people aware of it and sort of speaking about it, because I think the society that we're in, it's kind of not frowned upon, but a lot of people don't like to talk about it. And not from personally, because I haven't really been affected by it massively. I know people who have and their situations, and I'm sure we're going to understand it a bit more when you start explaining where you've came from and how you've grew from where you were to where you are today. But it's one that a lot of people need to sort of express about more, and that helps with the whole process of sort of getting better, if that makes sense, and then getting to where you want to be ultimately. So if you want to give a bit of background on sort of where you've came from in terms of how it started, if you don't mind going into too much detail, it's up to you how much you want to give away, and just talk about sort of how, well, like the topic of the podcast would be the exercise side of things has then helped you to progress and get to where you are today, obviously much better.
Yeah, that sounds good. So basically, I've always been into my sport at school. I was always into sport. And then I went to university, not knowing what I wanted to do, but I did real estate management because I thought I'd do it off the back of a bit of work experience in the estate agency. And it got into first year and kind of, university. I think a lot of people resonate with this. University, that is a very big kind of partying culture, as we all know. And, it's good to enjoy yourself when you're at uni. But especially if you're not in a good place, it can kind of escalate quite badly. And obviously, at this point, I was in denial and I hadn't been myself for a while, but I wasn't really aware of it. And I thought that was just me changing as a person. But it wasn't just me changing, it was just me suffering, and it was how I was reacting to it. And got to second year and my mental health was really bad. I basically kind of isolated myself with a couple of friends. I was with a couple of mates, but all social events I missed, and I made excuses left, right and centre. And I just thought this was the new me. And then I'll never forget the day where it was, so in third year, before I had a couple of months to go before finishing uni. And then I just broke down in front of my parents. I couldn't hold it in any longer. And it was such a release for me. And I hadn't been myself for a while. My mum knew that I hadn't been myself, but she didn't know how bad it was. So then I went and said, I've got to do something about this. This is bad. And I really desperately wanted to quit university because I hated it. but I thought I've got to keep going. You know, I'm near the end. I was doing a course I hated and was at a university I didn't fit in, but I was like, giving up's not an option. So then it gets to beginning of third year. This was before I kind of really broke down in front of my parents. I never stepped foot in the gym before, never. Apart from school when we had to with rugby, but never voluntarily stepped in the gym before. And my mates were like, oh, come on, mate. And I used to be so lanky and gangly. Probably still am, to be honest, but a bit less so now.
To be honest.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, God save it. So I went, and then I had no idea what I was doing. I was like next to all these dudes who, you know, busting out 100 kg on the bench, and I was looking at them and thinking, oh my goodness, like I felt very intimidated, but because I went with my mates, that really helped. And it was tough for the first week because once you're trying to start a new habit or trying to start something in your life, you know, it's tough to stick with it because you're not used to it. And then after about the second week, I started to really kind of feel energized when I came out. And it was the only time in my life at that point where I felt good. Like I hated my life back then. I just didn't want to be myself. And the gym was the only time in my life where I felt safe, because once I started to get to know kind of the weights and the machines a bit more, it gave me a real sense of purpose. And going with my mates created a real accountability to it. So we always push each other. And it got to about a month in, and although I didn't see like significant results, I just got the bug for like how good it made me feel, that post-gym feeling, you know, all that endorphin release. And it does absolute wonders to your brain. So that feeling I got when I came out of the gym was like, it made me feel the only time in my life in my life that I felt alive. But I mean, about 2 hours later, I'd go back to feeling pretty terrible about myself. But in that short amount of time, you know, I loved it. So I quickly got the bug for it, and I started to go about 5 to 6 times a week because it became my safe place. Even if I didn't need to go, I'd just do like a light core session and, you know, go on the treadmill for a bit, just with my mate, just because that was the only time I felt good. And it started to get better and better, and I wasn't getting better in terms of my head, but in terms of my physical body, I could see results. I was like, okay, this is good. And it was my real sense of purpose. And it basically gave me the building blocks to recover from mental health. It's not a straight journey recovering from mental health. But when I opened up to my parents, I was going to the gym, that was my third month or so. That was like the start where it started to get better, because the thing with people with mental health and where people struggle so much to open up is because you're so scared of so many things. And even if it's your best mate or your mum or your dad, even though you know how much they love you, you still overthink everything, and you think the worst of how they're going to react, how they might treat you differently, even though they've shown you all this love this whole time. And it's just something that is still very tough for people. It's not as easy just snapping out of it. There is, for me, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. And I think especially with guys, you know, there's this whole persona, I'm sure you'd agree, where
Exactly.
we have to be seen to be manly. And I actually think that's the biggest sort of rubbish out there, because I think it takes such more of a man to actually be open and honest about your emotions.
100%. I'm with you on that one. Like if you're the kind of person just to express how you feel, and then you're the bigger man to accept what the issue is and then find a solution for it and resolve the problem that might be in place. So you're 100% right by saying that you're not going to have to be the alpha male of the room and keep everything in and not express how you feel. And I think a lot of, especially men, maybe some women, but they feel like they've got to keep things in because they don't want to be shown in whatever way or perceived to other people in a certain way. So for people to come out in whatever it is that they might have inside, for someone to come out and express what they feel, then it's a very good thing. And I think it reflects a lot on the person, and it should be something that people kind of look up to and just take into consideration. So to see where you've came from, that's really good, to be honest. It's a really good thing. That's why I really want to get this podcast done, because I think, especially at the minute, for people to hear other people talking about how they're feeling, it might flip that switch in the head when people might not think they are down, or because everybody has the low days, which it's perfectly fine, because not one person in the world can say they've had 100% every day for the whole. Everyone has the low days. It's then how you come away from those low days and progress. But I think people then hear other people talking about it, which help them understand what they're feeling inside. So for you to speak about it, and then that might trigger somebody else to think, oh, maybe I'm in this situation, I'll speak about it. And then we'll get the more people that get to share their story and get to speak about it, the more people it can help. So it has like a momentum effect and like a ripple effect on people, and it'll affect people in different ways. Of course, like I said, personally, I've never been massively affected by it. But I know a lot of people who have, and granted, I do have low days because no one's 100%. You can be training and then it switches and you're feeling so much better. And like you say, once you come out of the gym, it can die off, but it's that knowing that you're going to be there tomorrow to carry it on and carry it on. So I think it's amazing that you can come from somewhere that's been low and a bit dark to then the other side, which is amazing. It's really, really good.
As well, like to people out there who are listening and might feel like you're struggling, like if you were to tell me a couple of years ago I'd be so open about kind of talking on this podcast about it, I would obviously have not have believed you. But this has given me kind of this whole belief that no matter what situation you're in, no matter how low you're feeling, you always have the inner strength to turn it around. And I think that's really powerful, because when people feel like they're going down this really dark path, the only bit of advice I can give to you is that it has to come from with you, because you have to fight it. And the reason I fought it is because I self-reflected and I knew there was two options. If I was carrying on like I was, I was scared on where it was going. So I stopped myself and I thought, if I don't stop now, something is bad is going to happen. And so I took that initiative and I admitted, I just needed help. And I think a lot of people get scared about opening up, because when you openly admit your mental health issues, especially depression, I can't speak for the others, I can only speak for depression, but you are aware of the long journey ahead. And that is really frightening. But just being aware that there is a long journey ahead and you have opened up is a huge step in the right direction, because once you start to get on that mission to try and recover yourself from mental health, you will do whatever it takes to get better, because you just want to get yourself out of that whole cycle of every day being sucked in by, I call it the dark cloud visual, where this dark cloud's over me, controlling me. So you always have the power to change the situation around. And I think, it's good that people like you are listening, because although you haven't necessarily suffered mental health, I think for us to just be really transparent about it, and for people like you say, you don't know, your friends might be struggling, but once we talk about it more, we get to know kind of the signs and stuff. Even that person might be in denial, but you can always look out for them. And I think the more we can kind of be in tune with each other and our surroundings, because we can get so sucked into our own lives and not be aware of what's going on around us, when we are aware of our friends and family. And I think that's a really powerful step in the right direction to looking out for each other.
No, 100%. And when you said previously about it coming from within, I think a lot of people try to cover it up and try to find, whether it be happiness or whatever it may be, in a means of something else. So if it's sort of buying flashy things to make them feel better or look better for others, and it's sort of like a mask to try and hide up what they actually are feeling inside. So I think, like you say, it's got to come from you, and you've got to realise what the issue is, and why you're in the position you're in, and the steps you're going to take to ultimately get out of that dark place, to find the light at the end of the tunnel. And yes, it could look a very long tunnel, but you've just got to make them little steps. And it's not gonna happen overnight, but it's a process that happens, and you've just got to take it as it comes. Let people help you as well. Try not and do it on your own, because if you do on your own, that tunnel is going to look even longer. If you've got a few more people on your side who you can speak to, then that is going to be even bigger for you to then develop and progress in yourself. So if you've got surrounded yourself with good people, I think that can be a massive factor as well, by having, like you say, you spoke to your mum and dad, you had a good set of friends around you, and if they all understand the position you're in, they can then support you to build you up back to what you want to be ultimately. So it's a really good thing to see. And like we mentioned, at the minute, in this moment in time that we're in, it's one which a lot of people might start to feel, but they're not sure if it is. So they're putting it off, and like you said, they could be in denial about it. But then when they hear somebody else say their opinion on it, they might realise that they are in the same position that you were, or other people who are listening could be in. So it's a big step to understand where you've came from and that you've actually got a problem, or you're feeling depressed or down. Like I say, we're speaking generally around depression at the minute. We can't really go into that topics because we're not too sure on them situations. I'd rather not speak about them death if we don't know too much about them. But the depression side of things, like, people do have their low days, but I think some people have them worse than others. Some people have them better than others. It's just how you deal with them personally and with your small group of friends and family around you to support you. And at the minute, I think it could be a lonely place if you've got, say, a family who are, some are going to work. So at the minute, there was 8 of us in my house like about 4 weeks ago, and now there's just me and my little brother. So I think if my little brother wasn't here, you'd be thinking you'd be quite lonely. And it's just a bit different in the situation that we're in. Obviously, when we're in a normal day-to-day life, things are a lot different. We're a lot busier, and we don't really have time to think as much. We've got a lot more time on our hands now to think about things and process things. So I think people might then start to realise how they're feeling instead of just putting it to the one side and being busy 100 miles an hour all the time. People are now realising that they do have an issue just because of them they're being a bit more isolated and alone, if that makes sense.
100%.
So how?
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Carry on.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of it is as well is that when you leave university, sometimes you don't know what you want to do. And I could have taken a decision to do the course that I wasn't enjoying and kind of go into career in real estate. But I didn't want to be sucked into me being in a job that I wasn't enjoying, because I know that was just going to kind of contribute to more unhappiness. And that's why I thought, okay, I made a sacrifice. I moved back home and I worked on a farm for a bit, because it was at a point where I couldn't be around people. I used to work in a pub before that, and I couldn't go back to that job because being depressed, I'm sure if people out there listening, you find social contact very difficult and very draining, and you're always putting on this face because you don't want people to know you're in such a bad way. So you'll always put on this face. But when you kind of come back home and you go into your room or whatever, or not even, but when you're just back home, you feel so drained, and it drains you over time, just emotionally, physically, and mentally. It just destroys your well-being. So I took that sacrifice to work on a farm, and it was tough. It was a period of self-reflection. It provided me with such great experiences. But then I was like, how do I go about trying to heal myself? And I decided to go traveling. And traveling was such a great healer, because I found when I was over here, being around kind of the university environment, school environments, when you're around loads of people, there's always a certain pressure. I always found a certain pressure kind of to act a certain way, and I could never feel like I could truly be myself and heal myself. So I had to get away from where like the pain was in the UK. So I went down traveling to Australia and to Fiji and Asia, which was amazing with my mate.
Really good.
I'll make great life experiences, and I'd always recommend it to people just to have those life experiences. But the thing about traveling is I went with my mate for a couple of weeks. We were out there for 6 weeks, I think. And then I went by myself for a bit, and it pushes you outside your comfort zone, but not in a really demanding way. Like when I was traveling by myself, I was by myself, and I was making friends like in the evenings and stuff, and they didn't know me, they didn't know my situation. And because of that, I found it really liberating. So you need to push yourself outside your comfort zones when you are trying to heal yourself, because pushing yourself outside your comfort zone is the only way you are going to grow. You're never going to grow. That transfers into all walks of life. You never grow in your comfort zone, do you? It's like in the gym, you've got to
push past the boundaries that are keeping you. You've got to get out and do what is uncomfortable to then become comfortable doing that, and then you go into the next thing. So you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is a very good quote, which you've got to take in. You've just got to get used to doing things that you maybe don't want to do, but it's going to help you in the long term. And that was going to be one of my questions, was what did you do to sort of overcome this? Obviously, we're going to speak about exercise in a second and how that relates to the mental well-being of people. But was there anything in specific? Obviously, you said you went traveling. Was there anything in specific that you did to help yourself, or was it just an overall process of things that you did to help you get to where you are now?
Yeah, of course. Well, I did get some therapy.
Okay.
My mum had a friend from school, and she had a contact. So I got in touch with her. And obviously the first time you go into therapy, you are and you are so out your comfort zone because you're chatting to someone you don't know. But that's really important. That's really good, because chatting to someone you don't know, it's a safe space. It's all confidential. It doesn't get out. So you can let off all your thoughts and feelings in that space, and that's it. But the first session was extremely awkward because you don't really understand what's going on inside your head, and people with mental health will be able to relate. But the more sessions we had, the more I understood what was going on inside my head, because you can always talk to your friends about it, and it's great, and your family, but they're professionals for a reason, and they trigger certain thought patterns that you wouldn't have thought about before. So that's why, like, it can help you understand what's going on inside your head. And it might feel awkward, and I had moments in there kind of where I was teary and I didn't know really what to say. I felt uncomfortable, but I knew it was the right thing. So I had those therapy sessions in between working on the farm, and that was kind of like the first real significant step of getting on the healing path. And then I said to her, can I have your number just in case if I'm traveling, if I have a funny moment? She's like, yeah, of course. But when I was out traveling, not once did I need it, because although, you know, I was still going out my comfort zone, chatting to people I don't know, which I've always found difficult in the past. And then I just kind of grew and grew from that. And then the more kind of I started to get more comfortable talking about kind of my journey, and the more I've gotten talking about it, the more comfortable I feel. And I don't get embarrassed about it now, because it's who I am today. Without that personal struggle, without those 4 years of going through hell, I wouldn't have this sense of purpose. I wouldn't have had this passion for fitness that I'm in now. So it's given me that real sense of purpose. So that's kind of like the healing process. And although I came back from travel, I still wasn't 100%. But I went back onto the farm because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I decided to become a personal trainer to follow actually what gives me most joy in life. And that was kind of a sacrifice I made going back to the farm in order to pursue that. But, you know, here we are today. It's been a roller coaster of a journey, but it's been up to me to fight through it. And I just want people out there to, you know, it's never a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And I really do promise you that. Because I would see people who would talk about their mental health when I was kind of struggling. And I was always one of those people like, that's never going to happen to me, never going to happen. I was all like, I'm not going to be around for much longer. But I'm actually saying it genuinely, just a normal guy, not some guy you see on ITV like Piers Morgan trying to preach about, oh, it's okay, it's not okay. Because to be fair, if I see those campaigns when I was going through that crap, I would find that so patronizing. So I always think those campaigns, they're nice sentiments, but actually they're not really empathetic, because they don't realize how it's received from someone suffering mental health issues. So from someone who is just a normal guy, I'm telling you that your situation is a matter of when, not if. I promise you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's, with it being such a more popular thing at the minute, and it's grown, the awareness has grown, and with social media, Facebook, Instagram, obviously there's a lot of negativity around it, but there's starting to become a lot more positivity, and it's starting to now outweigh the negatives. So the positive sides are now being shown more instead of it all being negative. I think a lot more positives are being shown, which is then having a good effect on people who do need to speak about it and come to terms with it, and then try to get help and understand how to get through it and find that process of getting from where you are to where you want to be. So I think with the industry growing and with social media growing, it can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So you've got to be very careful with what you allow yourself to take in. So whether it be, just for instance, if you're following someone on Instagram, you don't want to be comparing, because then that's just going to be negatively affecting you. You want to be careful with what like you allow in. So in terms of the social media side, with like the campaigns and stuff, you want to be careful with what you allow into your life, because then that could affect you in a negative way. So you want to be careful with that, to then find the positives of like the social media side of things and the TV side of things, to find the positives in it, because it can be a very negative world, which is unfortunately the hard truth. But I think a lot of people, from yourself, have got to share that positivity, and that you can get a lot better than where you feel you are, because you might not feel you can, but there is, like I say, that light at the end of the tunnel, and you've just got to work on yourself, and whatever way may be for you to heal yourself. Like I said earlier on, I've not really experienced a lot in terms of depression. I think I would reference the only time I've ever felt at my lowest would be when I broke my collarbone, and I was off the gym for 3 months, housebound for 3 months, lost all my clients from my personal training, didn't work, and being housebound for 3 months at the beginning of the 2019, January till March, I think I was around. Just the whole independence was gone, so I couldn't do anything personally, and I'm quite a very independent person. So I like to take things on by myself. I don't really like much help in terms of things. And when I became sort of not useless, but I couldn't do anything, my arm was stuck here, couldn't get changed, couldn't shower. Everything was sort of like a struggle, couldn't get into bed. So having to have someone to help us, it affected us in some sort of way, which I couldn't really explain, but at the time I wasn't sure. But then after looking after it, I was thinking back, and at the time I was pretty low because I wasn't able to go out and about. I was stuck in the house, similar to what we are now, but I can move around now. Like it's fine.
At least we're used to it.
I've had practice. I was, like say, I couldn't do much, so I had to have help with the shower, help getting into bed, help getting changed for a couple of months because it was quite bad, to be fair. But that was probably the lowest time I've been, where I couldn't work, I couldn't really socialise, and I like being I'm a people person. I like being around people. I like speaking to people, even though I'm quite independent and do like my own time. I like speaking to people. And when everyone was at work and I was in the house, couldn't PT, couldn't work. It was getting sort of to a point where I was just getting sick of like being in the house. And then I started going out, and just going for walks was a big thing, to get out of the house and go for a walk, even though it was me almost stuck where it was. I couldn't do much, but I would say that was the only real point to where I was feeling sort of low. I wouldn't necessarily say I was depressed, because I wouldn't like to throw that word around with people who have who have experienced it in a different way. But it was definitely some sort of low point to where I was not myself, low, just because of I was completely unable to do anything. And when you're on your own, you do think a lot more than when you are, like I said earlier on, when you're 100 miles an hour, you do seem to be, you put it to one side. And then when you are by yourself, completely on your own, you can't do much. You start thinking about certain things. And I was thinking, was I going to go back to PT? And could I go back to the gym, because I'd lost quite a bit of weight? I couldn't train. I wasn't eating properly. The appetite had gone. So it's just like a ripple effect. And then obviously it's not as much mentally, it was more a physical thing for me. But then it obviously did affect mentally on the side of things. But it's nothing to compare what certain people have been through. But that was the only sort of experience I would have said I've had with it, is when I was completely isolated by myself, broken collarbone, couldn't fend for myself really. And that was the only time where it sparked a little something in my head where I was low. But then that was just the side of things where I couldn't train. That was one of the biggest things. It was I couldn't go out, socialise, and I couldn't train at the gym. And because that was one of the biggest things for me at the time. The PT business had just kicked off last January, and then all the clients had gone. I couldn't say just wait 3 months until my arm fixes, and just wait, like, put your goals on hold for us. So I kind of had to let them go, do their thing. But like I say, mine was more of a physical thing, where I came back to rehab my shoulder, back into physical fitness, compared to being in a mental fitness. But I think it still kind of resonated in some sort of way between the two.
Mate, definitely. I think what you said there's it's a really important point about, although you haven't been through it, you had that tough time and kind of being physically injured where you're not exercising, but that does actually have a detrimental impact. It transfers to your mental and emotional well-being. So when you are going through those low times, when you're not exercising, and that is part of your routine, it does affect you, and it does change you, and you're not as positive, you're not as energetic, you are more emotionally unavailable. So even though you might not have had kind of, say, depression necessarily, you've had your struggles where you've been emotionally and mentally very vulnerable, and there's a fine line. But sometimes people who are emotionally and mentally vulnerable, it can slide into mental health issues. But fortunately for you, that didn't happen. That's good.
Yeah.
But what you said as well about the social media, that's a really important point I want to just mention, because I think for young people especially, I think the two main things why mental health is such a big thing with young people, I think one is social media, and I think two is not knowing actually who they are. And I know it sounds really cliche when they say, oh, you go and find yourself, or traveling, or whatnot, but not knowing who you are. And it's so natural, because we're forced so quickly into making a decision with our careers, with university, like you're making decisions at school. And if you probably ask the majority of people at school what they want to do, they wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo. but you're forced into that environment. Everyone thinks we have to go to uni. Not everyone does, but that's such a culture now to go to uni, and you just get sucked more into not knowing what you want to do. Like me as well, I didn't do a course I wanted to do. Had no idea. So when you don't have that directional purpose in life, you feel so overwhelmed and vulnerable, because you think, what the hell am I going to be doing with my life? And social media, with the pressures, seeing people post the perfect pictures every time, which is a load of absolute rubbish anyway, because they spend their life just posting the perfect photo to impress people that aren't
They're
having
never going to see them.
Mate, it's so narcissistic. So these people, we compare ourselves to, it's not realistic. They don't post their struggles every day.
No.
But obviously when you are vulnerable, you don't see that. You just see what they have, and you think, oh my gosh, I could be having that, but I'm here not knowing what I want to do. So they really complement each other. Well, when I say complement, they kind of interlink with each other and contribute to people feeling kind of depressed, anxiety, all these mental health issues. So I think what you said about social media, that was a really important point.
So I did a podcast, 2 podcasts ago, one, I'm not sure when this will be uploaded, but I think there's 2 podcasts ago, and it was talking about the focusing on the process and not the results, and comparing yourself to somebody who could be 5 years into whatever they're doing. And so say, for instance, if we're PT and we could be comparing somebody who's 15 years into the industry, full diary of clients, smashing it online. You can see them on Instagram on the nice holidays, and as soon as you compare yourself to what they've got, you've lost straight away, because you're going to have yourself, correlation to what we're saying, it's going to be, you're going to have a negative effect on you. You're going to mentally think, oh, well, why am I not doing what he's doing? Why am I not where he is? And with the power of social media, you're comparing yourself to people all the time, which everyone kind of does. I do it all the time. You fall victim to it when you don't realise. And then I think that's a bigger thing, where you actually do realise that you're doing that and comparing yourself to other people who could be 10 years into their journey, into their process, and you don't, and you're just starting off. Like, we could be 1 or 2 years in, and then as soon as you're comparing with someone who's 10 years ahead of you, you're just going to be demotivated. You're going to get your head down, and then that can then spiral into other things if you don't just take a step back and realise where you are, where you're starting off, and then your process of getting from A to B. It's just a funny one with some people. It's that you've just got to take a step back and assess you and where you want to go. Like I said in that previous podcast, it's about understanding the steps to get to where you want to be, instead of comparing yourself to others and trying to reach for their goals and what they've got, and monitor success off what's relevant to you. So whatever successful is meaning to you, that could be different to me and you as well, or any other individual. Your success is based off different things, and it's more relevant to the person. So I wouldn't compare that, which can make a negative effect again on that mental situation of the person who we could be speaking to. So in terms of the exercise side of things and the time that we're in now, I just kind of wanted to go into how the lockdown and the virus and the quarantine situation would be affecting people. Obviously, with the experiences you've had in terms of the exercise has helped you come through it, and you found that sort of spark and passion to what helped you get through it. At the minute, with everyone being in lockdown and in quarantine, how would you say from a personal point of view, that it would be affecting their mental health? So in terms of the limited access, which I know has changed, so now we can have unlimited access and we can start seeing other people. But previously, the past 8 weeks, have only been allowed an hour of exercise a day. Some people who may be confined to a flat or a smaller house, or aren't as lucky to have the garden or whatever it may be in their situation, once they're confined to that space, to then be allowed out for an hour, how would you say that would have an effect on people with experiencing the things that you've have in terms of how exercise has helped you?
Well, for me, towards kind of when I understood mental health a bit more about what was going on inside my head, I had kind of this like 3-step process. I call it a 3-step process. And the first step of it is ruminate. And rumination, for those who don't know what it means, it's basically you just dwelling on your toxic negative thoughts. Well, they could be toxic, they just could be negative thoughts, but it's the process of you just constantly dwelling over it. So for example, if you're watching the TV and watching, say, hypothetically 600 more deaths in the UK, then that might spike a bit of anxiety, because you might think, oh, what if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? And then all these negative thoughts come into your head, and it can heighten your anxiety. If you're depressed, it can make you feel worse about yourself. So that's the first kind of step. The second step is, okay, once you actually realize that it's going on in your head, that this rumination process is going on, accept it. It's not fun, but then you just got to take action. So you got to dominate the situation. So wherever you are, so if you don't have the space outside, if you're sitting on the sofa watching TV, whatever you're doing, just remove yourself from that environment you are in. So even if you're living, say, in a flat, and you're sitting on the sofa, you could go into your room, you could go into your kitchen and do something that you enjoy or might take your mind off it. So that could be, I mean, if you haven't done a workout, or even if you do want to work out again, exercise obviously is, as we know, so powerful. Meditation, I've recently taken up meditation, and that is honestly,
That's
I
one
did
thing I
it.
need to try to get onto a bit in terms of
Mate,
meditation.
honestly,
I think
I
exercise,
would recommend it. I would
yeah,
recommend it,
because there's a
even
few
if
apps that you can use, and I've seen a lot of people using them. Like I know, or you can get a couple of books and stuff. But that's one thing I need to try to look into a bit more, because this side of the thing I've not really dived into too much. But it's something that's like an eye opener, and like you say, with the meditation thing, something that I could look into to getting into. Yeah,
especially when life's so fast paced, like meditation is nice, just kind of reflect and just slow it down a bit. So mental health issues or not, it's a really good time of reflecting, and it's not necessarily easy to grab onto, but sometimes, when you have a good bit of meditation, it's really beneficial. Like, there's easy apps like Headspace where you can
that's the
do it
one I
for
was thinking of. I couldn't think of the name.
yeah, that's it. And if you do have anxiety, that's a really good one, and that calms you down. So meditation would be what yoga kind of interlinks with that. But if you enjoy yoga, or even if you haven't tried these things, why not give them a go? You
Yeah,
can't knock it and
definitely.
try it, which is, so it's important to always give these things a go. But maybe cooking as well. If you find cooking relaxing, or like reading a book, just getting yourself out of
Something
kind
to
of,
keep you busy.
yeah, mate, just watch something on TV if that's what you enjoy, just to take your mind off it. But just whatever you do, just don't stay in the same environment or situation you are in when you're dwelling on those negative thoughts. That would kind of be like the main bit of advice, because I always used to do that when I kind of became aware and I was thinking, okay, I'm actually struggling a little bit here. What do I do? And then I would go and do even like a 20-minute workout just to get out of my system,
Even a
or
walk
I'd
can get you in the right
walk.
headspace. So I've started doing them since being locked down. I would never really purposely go for a walk, because obviously you're so busy when you don't stop to think about certain things when your normal day-to-day life. And like you were saying there, once you get time, just put yourself in a different situation. So through lockdown, I was trying to get out more and just take a step back and try to sort of relax. So in the mornings, I'm going for 30, 45-minute walk, nothing too much, podcast on, and that is sort of just my time to sort of like just take a step back, relax, and then just enjoy. So I've got like I'm looking at a load of woods behind us now, the trees and stuff. So I just go for a little wander, and it's just
Not,
so much. It just sets you up so much better for the day,
mm,
and it just clears your head, and you and your thoughts, and then you're ready to go. And so I'll come back, get in a shower. I've been trying to do cold showers, which is one I'm not really
that's
doing too
tough, mate.
well with, but I've been
Yeah.
trying to do a few cold showers, a couple of minutes here and there, and then I'm ready for the day. So it's just putting your steps into place to set you up for a good day. And exercising is obviously one of the biggest things for me personally. If I don't get a good session in, or I don't train for a couple of days, I change a little bit. My mood changes. I'm a little bit more snappy. Some people, I'm just a bit more down. And over the weekend, I was away at my girlfriend's, and I hadn't trained for a few days. I came back on Monday, and I was a little bit like iffy at home, and
Mm.
I could tell. So I was like, I need to get a good sweat on. So I just did a quick 20-minute HIIT session, and you just feel so much better after it when you haven't done it for a couple of days. And it
Always,
just,
mate.
like you say at the
Always.
beginning of the podcast, the endorphins at the end, you just feel really good. And then you know that feeling that you want to hang on to, so you go and do it again tomorrow and the day
Yeah.
after, and then you keep a hold of that feeling, which ultimately will progress to making you feel a lot
Mm.
better. So I think exercise personally for me is one of the biggest things to help with my personal situation. Obviously, a lot of
Mm.
people could do it differently in terms of meditation, or like you say, cooking or reading, doing something that they enjoy to take their mind off it to help deal with the situation. So I think the exercise side of things at the minute could be one of the biggest factors to why some people might then start feeling down a bit and have that effect on their mental state, with not being
Yeah.
able to express themselves outside as much as they'd like. Because I think a lot of people took it for granted at the beginning. So I did quite a few rants at the beginning of the lockdown to why all of a sudden it took a virus and that killed thousands of people to give people a kick up the arse to start exercising. And I think a lot of people took it for granted. at the time, which I
Yeah.
was quite adamant on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, to why people were all of a sudden out cycling for an hour a day when they'd never done it before, just to,
Yeah.
because of the situation that they're in. It took people to die and a virus to spread across the world for people to actually realize how important exercising is on your well-being, on your health, which I think it's quite sad to think that people need to have that kick up the bum at the time to then realize how important it is, because it's so important. Just any sort of activity would be the key for me to keep you fit and healthy, and keep your mind and body physically fit as well.
100%. And those people who don't kind of realize the power of exercise, because if they haven't given it a go, then, well, first, don't they realize what they're missing out on, but it's just what you kind of place your value on in life. And until you've had that taste of how powerful it is on not only your physical being, but also your mental and emotional well-being, once you realize the power of it, there's no going back. You always have to have exercise in your life, because if you don't have it, as you said when you got snappy, you do change as a person. You're not as happy and you don't flourish as much for it. So it's just kind of spreading the awareness as well, not just about what physical exercise does to our physical being, but also to the whole overall well-being approach. And the more people realize that, the more we're going to be opening up about our feelings and our mental health. And hopefully it gets to a point where we go over to our mate's house having a barbecue, and all us dudes talking about, how our anxiety's been or how our mental health's been.
Yeah.
That's kind of where society needs to go.
Yeah.
I think when that does happen, that is going to be like a pinnacle moment, because I'm very open with my mates and we're open about our mental health. And because of it, we're so much more beneficial for it. And sometimes if we're noticing a difference, we're like, mate, you seem a bit down today. Like, how's your head? And we'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm a bit struggling at the moment. This has been going on. And it's great. We're so open with it. But a lot of guys still struggle with that. And, it's not like you could just, as I said, force it. We will get to that point. The more kind of guys do realize, it's not embarrassing to talk about your mental health, the more progress we can make. Obviously for ladies as well, but I can't speak from the psyche of a woman, obviously.
100%.
So
no, that's with being able to speak to your friends about it and have them on board to help you on that journey can be a massive factor. And when you can notice in people's mood and the way they're acting if something is wrong, so you can see if they may be looking a bit down, and that's when you need to be the friend that you should be, and then speak to them. So if you do maybe see somebody who is a little bit down, don't be embarrassed to say, are you all right? Is everything okay? Because I think the person who might be feeling down would appreciate it a lot more. I think sort of society wouldn't want to. So if you've seen someone, just for example, on a park bench who had their head in their hands and they weren't too, they were a bit all over the place, I think a lot of people would just put their head down, carry on the phone, and walk straight past them. And I think often a lot of people just need that person to connect with them and make the first initial move. So if you see someone who is that, this would be a bit of advice to people who do see the effect that it has on people and don't say anything, then it would be just to say something, because then that would help massively. So I think a smile can just make a big difference. If you walk past someone, you've got your head in your phone and you're completely blanking out the world, I think once you just get your head up and have a look around, if you do see someone who might be in a worse position, then you just offer that help, because you might feel a bit awkward offering it, but I think the person who's receiving it would feel a million times better, and that could be the start of their progress. Just that initial first conversation to, are you okay? And then they might go, no. And then that conversation starts, and then they start opening up to, it could be a complete stranger. If you see someone, you sit next to them in the park, obviously not at the minute, but you're 2 meters away, as long as you're 2 meters away, but that initial contact could be the starting point to their journey and their progress. And like I said just there, it's people just try to blank it out and have their head down, and they don't look up, and you just need to take notice of what's going on around you. If your friends do look off, take that first step into offering help. Don't let them come to you. Try to go to them if need be, because they might not want to go to you to start off with, but then once you start off speaking about it and you've made the first step, they might then progress from there. So I think a smile, like I said earlier on, it's a massive thing, just to make that first point of contact with someone who you might feel is in that situation. It's a massive thing, and one with like the society that we're in, social media, people are just more, they're very selfish, and
Yeah.
they're not willing to give anything because they're not going to get anything in return. So they might
Yeah.
think, why am I going to give this person 30 minutes of my time? What am I going to get back from that? But you're helping somebody who could be in a bad position to then get better. So that should be what you're getting out of it. So like this podcast, if this podcast could help one person, then
That's
I'm happy. If this podcast can reach 10, 15 people, just to kind of take a step back, understand their feelings, understand their emotional and physical well-being, then I'm done. Like, that's my job done.
Mm.
So I think that a first initial contact can be one which is so important, but a lot of people just don't take into consideration because it's very self-centered in their own little bubble. They don't want to reach out to other people. I think
What goes around comes around, mate.
100%. So I think if you're willing to give a lot, and then it comes back to you. So like you said, your circle of friends, you're very open to them, and they're open to you about certain things. That can be such a big thing because you've got them to go to if you were to feel down and you're not on your own. You've got people behind you who want to build you up. So I think it's really good the way you've came from what you were to now, how you've got that circle around you. And I think that's one massive thing that people should take away from this podcast is surrounding yourself with positive people who can help you and build you up. If people are always on your back, putting you down, you need to sack them off. Like, they aren't going to benefit you in any way. And you're not trying to rinse them, but you need people who are going to help you and push you forward and help you progress and be on your side and not against you. So I think you've got it. You're in a good position, I think, now to be. So would you say you're completely all good now, or do you still have? Because obviously everyone has those low days and negative days, but are you obviously on the right path now to where you want to be?
Yes, well, I don't have mental health issues anymore. It's been liberating, kind of where it's come from. But no, you obviously have the low days, but no mental health issues anymore, and that's why it's my mission to help people out there. I do this because I felt like I lacked that support. I had a great friendship group around me, but they didn't know the signs until I opened up. So I'm here to just spread awareness, so people could be more in tune with their friends and to resonate with people who feel like there is no hope, because I felt like I had no one out there to resonate with. As I said earlier, I only see celebrities preaching about it.
Yeah.
So I want to be that person for people who people can relate to and think, if he's done it, like, I can do it. So that's kind of my whole message and purpose with mental health, really.
Good. Like I say, when you said there, it's the signs that you've got to kind of look out for, and if you don't know what those signs are, it could be very hard for you to help people. So even if you don't haven't been affected by any sort of mental health issues, then if you've got an understanding of them, you can be able to help people. So if you don't know the triggers or the what people are showing, and you can't understand their position, so if you could see somebody and you're not sure what's wrong with them, if you know that and take time to understand it, then you can be able to help them so much more than just, like I said, walking past them and not being able to help them. What in terms of nowadays, how do you think people are now going to come out of lockdown? Do you think it's going to be a positive thing with people having the time to reflect and take a step back? Because obviously life is now so much slower than it was when you're 100 mile an hour. You think out of lockdown it's going to be, how do you think everything's going to look out of lockdown? Do you think, obviously the statistics at the minute aren't looking great, with obviously I think the one in America, the suicide rates went quite high due to being in lockdown and everyone's now on their own. How do you think it's going to come out of lockdown looking for people with mental health? Do you think they're going to be better because they've now used that time to exercise, meditate, or do whatever they need, speak to people? Or do you think that it's going to come out worse?
So that's a really interesting point, and I haven't thought about it before.
Sorry
But
to put you on the spot.
yeah, no, mate, it's good. I like it. It's challenging, but I think it just depends on the individual, and I mean, that's not a cop out. But there are people out there who will always try and kind of better themselves and make use of this time and see this time as a positive, and think, how do I improve? How do I learn? How do I grow from here? But there were people who go back straight away as life is normal and pretend kind of nothing's happened.
Yeah.
And I think people who are like that, I think that's just pretty ridiculous, to be honest, because they're the people who take life for granted. And as you said about kind of mental, I don't know the individual himself, but I think now is a perfect time to reflect on what's really important in your life. obviously whatever you hold value to, everyone's different, but then just really hold on to that and take it forward, because it just shows we aren't invincible like we think we are. And look after your health more, because as you say, people have reacted, and I hope those people who have reacted don't suddenly go back to not exercising after.
Yeah.
I hope it really kicks them on and makes them reflect on how important it is to be healthy, through exercise, yoga, meditation, just looking after your whole well-being. So I hope people do take more notice and see this as a huge kick up the arse and just think, right, I need to look after myself here. But it's hard to tell, isn't it, with some people?
100%. I've tried to be positive through like social media, to share, like, be productive, do what you can in whatever way is relevant to you to progress. So for me, my productivity was the podcast, doing online stuff, but for somebody else that might just be to come out of it in a better mental state than they were. So the progress could be relevant to the individual. Like I said, it's very specific and a broad question which I've asked, but I think if people were switched on, they'll be using this time to, like you say, reflect, take a step back, assess what's going on, where they are at, whether it be physically, mentally, to then come out of it hopefully in a better position. Because when you see and take things for granted, and what your values are, I think the main values are like your family and friends, because you can't see them, and then exercising, which is another big one, because we haven't been able to do it. So as soon as things are restricted in terms of seeing your family, seeing your friends, exercising, once it's restricted, you then understand that it's a value to you. So you might not know what your values are until they're taken away from you, and you're like, shit, I can't do anything. So I think once it's taken away from you, you then take a step back and you know what your values are, which are just being fit, healthy, like the basic things which people, I think, often put to the side. Like people want to have like a nice car, a nice house, the nice girlfriend, whatever it could be, but I think people kind of just put on the back burner their physical state, their mental health, their physical health, the family and the friends, and just their bubble around them. I think they put that on the back burner to have what everyone else wants them to have, and to be perceived as something else. Like what we were saying earlier on, comparing yourself, you want to be the flash person on Instagram or Facebook, but really your values aren't there until you realise they're taken away, which are your family, your friends, being able to socialise, to go out and exercise. So I think once they're taken away from you, you understand how valuable they are to you. And then hopefully at the end of this, some people go and visit people who they haven't seen in a while, because that they haven't seen them, and that's taken away from you. Once it's taken away from you, you kind of take a step back. So go and see like your friends and family who you might not have spoken to, reach out to them and see, are they all right, how they're getting on, and then again carry on exercising, carry on doing what you've done now. Because I think a lot of people have been proactive with it, but I think a lot of people have just been set in their ways, and they'll be in the same position they're in when they started 8 weeks ago. But hopefully this podcast can give them a little bit of a booster to set them on the right path, in terms of the mental, physical well-being, emotional well-being, and I hope the podcast can give some value to some people as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
Is there anything? I was going to ask one more question. Where's it gone? I think it's gone off my notes. I've lost the question.
Don't worry.
No, I've enjoyed this one. It's been one in which I think is very relevant, and that was why I was so keen to get you on. I think we spoke on Monday or Sunday.
Yeah, one of those days.
That was the first time. This is the first time for the listeners out there. It's the first time we've spoke other than 10 minutes ago before the podcast started. And that was one of the main reasons why I set the podcast up, to be able to reach out to a broader range of people, not just the people who follow you on Instagram and Facebook. And that's a very small community. I wanted to try and reach out to as many people as I can and provide a lot of value, not just around how to build muscle. And I wanted to broaden my sort of demographic to a lot of other people in terms of like the mental side of things, the physical and mental well-being, which that's why I was so keen to get you on this podcast. When you messages, I was like, this is exactly what the podcast needs at this time. I've talked about sort of my story in other podcasts, and I didn't want it just to be the bog standard gym podcast where I talk about the three mechanics to hypertrophy. Like I wanted to make it a bit different, and yes, there will be podcasts like that, but I wanted ones where they would stand out and have a bigger impact on people than just telling them, yeah, do 3 sets of 12 and you're good. But I wanted to make it a broader podcast to bring people on like yourself who've gone through experiences which no other person or have gone through or could understand, but to try and voice them so then it can help other people as much as I could. And that's why this podcast has been perfect, considering the situation that we're in at the minute.
Thank you for having me on, mate. I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully people out there who are still listening, you know, it's great to be so open about it, and I hope kind of just talking about it on this podcast can help you realise that it's always good to just get your feelings out there, cathartic release, and I know you can always fight on. You are stronger than you realise. Honestly, you are really so much stronger than you realise. So keep fighting, keep going on, and you'll get there.
If anybody was to maybe feel sort of down after this, or they've listened to it and they've had a question, then what's the Instagram again? Is it Be Fit and Beyond?
Be Fit and Beyond, yeah.
Okay, so if you're listening and you've got any questions or you want to know a little bit more information on some topics that we've covered, I'm sure you'd be happy to
100%.
get back to some people. If obviously I'm not the whole expert on it, I'm not too sure on the whole situation and the experiences and the route to go down. However, if you are in need to have a question or you've got any queries about anything, I'm sure Jack would be more than happy to be there to speak to if you needed that extra little bit of conversation just to get you on the right road to go. And if you need any help from me, again, just you know where to hit it. So it's at, what was your Instagram again?
So Be Fit,
Be Fit and
and
Beyond.
Beyond, yeah.
Spot on. Good. So no, thank you for listening. Thank you, Jack, for coming on. I've really enjoyed this one. And I'll see you in episode number 7.
Cheers, mate.
No bother.